of. Have you ever caught a guy looking at you just a little too long and you wondered, is he actually attracted to me of, or am I just imagining it? The truth is of, men often won't come right out and say when they're sexually drawn to you, but their body language, their tone of, and even their small habits can give them away. Today, I'm going to reveal 5 powerful signs that a man is deeply attracted to you but doesn't have the courage or the words to admit it out loud. Once you know these, you'll never be left guessing again. When it comes to attraction one of the most powerful giveaways isn't what someone says, but what their eyes reveal. A man may keep his words guarded, but his eyes will betray his feelings almost instantly. Think about it. Eye contact is one of the most intimate forms of connection and when a man feels a strong physical pull toward you, it's nearly impossible for him to hide it. He might not declare his attraction openly, but his gaze will speak a language all its own. You'll notice he doesn't just look at you the way he looks at everyone else. His eyes linger longer, as though he's trying to take in more than he should. It's not a quick glance of acknowledgement. It's a pause a hesitation, a subtle lock of attention that feels heavier, almost magnetic. One of the most common signs is when his eyes drift to your lips. He may not even be aware of it, but if you pay attention, you'll catch those fleeting moments where his gaze drops down for just a second before snapping back up. That tiny shift is a dead giveaway of desire. Another clue is how his eyes move across your face or body, sometimes quick, like he's trying not to get caught, and other times slower, almost like he's memorizing details. This isn't about objectifying it's about attraction being too strong to contain. He may think he's being discreet, but human instincts are powerful, and his eyes are naturally drawn to where his feelings lie. There's also the matter of eye contact during conversation, if he holds your gaze a little longer than what's considered normal. That's not accidental. Eye contact is deeply vulnerable, and most people break it quickly if they're not interested. But when someone is attracted, they want to connect, and they'll hold your gaze because it creates intimacy. At the same time, you may notice moments where he looks away suddenly, almost embarrassed that you've caught him staring. That push-pull of locking in and then retreating says everything. He's attracted, but he's not ready to admit it out loud. Sometimes it's not just the look itself, but the energy behind it. You can feel when someone's gaze is different. It's warmer, heavier, charged with a certain intensity that makes you instinctively more aware of yourself. That's because eye contact triggers a chemical reaction in the brain. It releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone which makes moments of lingering gazes feel more intimate and meaningful. So, when a man can't stop himself from holding your eyes, even in a crowded room, it's his biology revealing what his words won't. The key is not to overanalyze every look, but to notice patterns. One glance means nothing but consistent moments of lingering, darting to your lips, or catching him looking at you when he thinks you're not paying attention. Those are the signs that attraction is bubbling under the surface. His eyes are telling you a story his mouth may never admit. And if you learn to read that language, you'll never be left wondering where his heart, or in this case, his desire, really lies. When a man is sexually attracted to you, but doesn't say it outright, Of one of the clearest signals is how often he looks for ways to be physically close. Proximity is rarely accidental. Of think about it. If someone is indifferent, they won't pay much attention to where they're standing or sitting. But when a man feels drawn to you, his body naturally gravitates toward yours. He'll find little excuses to shrink the physical space between you, even if it's subtle. Maybe in a group setting. He'll stand closer to you than he does with others. Maybe at a restaurant. He chooses the seat right next to you instead of across the table, even if sitting across would make more sense. These choices aren't random. They are small but powerful indications of a desire to feel near you. Sometimes, it's as simple as leaning in when he speaks, even though he doesn't need to. He could talk perfectly well from a foot away, but instead he closes the distance until you feel his presence more vividly. That closeness carries energy. It makes you more aware of him. And it's his way of creating intimacy without saying a single word. You might also notice little touches that seem casual but are actually loaded with meaning. A hand on your shoulder when he laughs, brushing against your arm while making a point, or guiding you lightly by the back when walking through a doorway. To him, these touches feel natural, but they're born from attraction. They're his subconscious attempts to bridge the gap between friendship and something more. Another interesting thing is how often physical closeness comes with protectiveness. A man who feels desire for you may instinctively place himself near you in ways that suggest he wants to shield or guide. For example, if you're walking on a busy street, he may position himself on the outer side. If you're at a crowded event, he might subtly create space around you by how he stands. These gestures don't scream attraction loudly, but they whisper it clearly. They show he's thinking about you, about your comfort, and about making sure you feel safe with him. That instinct to close the distance is his way of signaling interest without speaking it out loud. It's also important to notice what happens when he doesn't have a reason to be near you. If he still finds one, that's significant. Maybe he lingers a little longer after a conversation, even though it could have ended. Maybe he chooses to walk alongside you, even if his destination is different. These are all ways he's prioritizing proximity, often without realizing how much it reveals. If he's consistently finding ways to be within your space, without making it obvious or uncomfortable, it's a very real sign his attraction is driving those choices. Ultimately, when words are held back, actions become louder. A man who's sexually drawn to you may never say it openly, but his body betrays him. The closeness he seeks, the excuses he makes to reduce space, the casual touches, and the protective positioning all add up to the same truth. He wants to be near you, because being near you makes him feel alive, connected, and closer to the desire he's holding inside. One of the most telling signs of unspoken attraction is how a man's voice and energy shift when he's around you. Communication is never just about the words we say. It's about tone, rhythm, and the emotional charge behind them. When a man is sexually attracted to you, he often unconsciously changes the way he speaks, because his body and mind are both trying to create a deeper connection. You may notice his voice drops slightly lower, becoming slower or more deliberate, almost as if he wants you to lean in and feel the weight of his presence. of this deeper tone isn't a performance. It's his body naturally moving into a mode of intimacy. At the same time, his energy may shift toward being more playful and teasing because humor becomes a safe outlet for his attraction. It allows him to flirt without openly confessing, testing the waters while still maintaining a light-hearted front. It's not only about the sound of his voice, but also about how engaged he becomes. With others, he may be casual or distracted, but with you, he sharpens his focus. His sentences may stretch longer. His words become more expressive, and you'll notice he actually listens differently. He's not just waiting for his turn to speak. He's tuned in, responding in ways that show he wants the interaction to keep flowing. That heightened attentiveness is fueled by attraction because he cares about how you respond, how you laugh, and how you feel during the exchange. On the flip side, some men reveal their attraction through nervous energy in their speech. Instead of a smooth, deliberate tone, they may stumble on words, laugh at themselves, or fill space with jokes or comments just to keep the conversation alive. This is another form of energy shift. It's not polished, but it's real. Nervousness in speech often signals that he values how you perceive him. He wants to impress, but the intensity of his feelings disrupts his usual composure. In other words, if his communication style is clearly different with you compared to others, it's rarely accidental. Body language and voice often work together. A lowered voice may come with leaning in closer, while teasing remarks might be paired with raised eyebrows or a mischievous smile. Attraction creates contrast. You'll notice his interactions with you carry more intensity, more subtle electricity, than when he talks to friends or colleagues. That contrast is the key. Ask yourself, does his energy feel different when he's around me? Does he seem more alive, more engaged, more deliberate in the way he speaks? Those differences aren't small, they're signals of something deeper. Ultimately, when a man shifts his voice and energy around you, it's not about pretending to be someone else. It's his subconscious aligning with his attraction. The voice slows down because he wants intimacy. The energy lifts up because he's excited. The teasing emerges because it's safer than outright confession. All of these patterns come together to reveal the truth. He feels a pull toward you, one strong enough to change the way he shows up in the moment. That's not coincidence. It's chemistry trying to speak where words fall short. One of the most fascinating ways attraction shows itself is through mirroring. It's something we often don't notice consciously, yet it's one of the strongest indicators of connection between two people. When a man is sexually attracted to you, his body begins to subtly copy your movements, almost as though he's tuning into your rhythm without even realizing it. This mirroring is not about mimicry in an obvious way. It's about the subconscious desire to align with you, to reflect you, and to feel closer by creating unspoken harmony. For example, imagine you're sitting with him and you cross your legs. Within a moment or two, he shifts and crosses his legs too. Or you take a sip of your drink and right after, he does the same. These small acts are rarely intentional, but they reveal something powerful his body is sensing with yours. This kind of mirroring is a biological response to attraction. It's the mind's way of saying, I want to connect with you. I want to be on the same wavelength. It's not just physical movements either. of. Sometimes you'll notice him mirroring your energy. If you speak softly, he lowers his voice. Of. If you get animated and excited, his gestures grow bigger, his tone livelier, almost as if he's feeding off your energy. Of. This isn't because he's trying to copy you. It's because he's naturally drawn into your orbit. Of. He wants to be in step with you because deep down that synchronization feels intimate and bonding. Of. Humans do this instinctively when they're attracted or deeply interested in someone. It's a way of building rapport and creating a sense of sameness. The fascinating thing is how subtle it can be. Of. Most people don't even notice when mirroring is happening, but once you stop paying attention, you'll see the pattern. If you lean forward, does he lean in too? If you tilt your head when listening, of, does his head follow the same angle? These are signals that his body is trying to connect with yours, that he's unconsciously saying, I'm with you, I'm following you, I'm aligned with you. Attraction has this magnetic pull that doesn't just affect emotions. It affects posture, gestures, and the very way two people sit or stand together. What makes mirroring so powerful as a sign of attraction is that it strips away performance. Of. A man might try to hide his feelings with words or guard his emotions in conversation. Of. But his body often reveals what he's not willing to say. If he's mirroring you consistently, it's because he feels drawn to you at a level deeper than logic. He wants you to feel comfortable with him. Of. He wants you to feel he's connected, and subconsciously, of, he wants to erase the distance between you by showing alignment in the smallest ways. When you notice mirroring, of, don't dismiss it as coincidence. Instead, see it for what it is, an unspoken language of desire. Of. It's his body saying what his lips won't, that he feels connected, tuned in, and deeply attracted. Of. And while he might not say those words out loud, of, his reflection of your movements is already telling you everything you need to know. Of. Sometimes attraction doesn't show itself in confidence or bold declarations, but in those small, very human moments of nervousness and protectiveness. When a man is sexually attracted to you, of, his body often gives him away in ways his words never could. Of. One of the most common signs is that he suddenly becomes more self-conscious in your presence. Of. He may fidget with his clothes, adjust his watch, run a hand through his hair, of, or straighten his posture the moment you walk into the room. These are not meaningless gestures. Of. They are his subconscious attempts to present himself in the best possible way, because your opinion of him matters more than he wants to admit. Of. Nervous energy often stems from attraction. It's his way of dealing with the intensity of wanting to impress you while worrying about making mistakes. Of. This nervousness can also show up in how he speaks or carries himself. Maybe his words stumble more than usual, of, or he laughs at things that aren't particularly funny, or he suddenly loses his train of thought mid-sentence. Of. He might not act this way around anyone else, which makes the difference even more telling. It's not that he's socially awkward. It's that the stakes feel higher with you. His desire to connect creates tension, and that tension leaks out through nerves. Of. If you've ever wondered why a confident man suddenly seems shy or flustered only when you're around, of, it's often because his attraction to you is stronger than his ability to mask it. On the other side of this same coin lies protectiveness. Of. A man who is drawn to you physically often also feels a natural instinct to look out for you. Of. You'll notice it in small gestures, placing his hand lightly on your back as you move through a crowded space, of making sure you walk on the safer side of the street, or checking if you got home safely after a night out. He may lean forward when someone else speaks to you, positioning himself closer as if to be part of the interaction. Of these little behaviors are his way of claiming a subtle guardianship over you. Even if he doesn't consciously think of it that way, attraction stirs not only desire, but also a sense of responsibility to ensure your comfort and safety. What's interesting is how these two aspects, nervousness and protectiveness, can seem contradictory, but actually reveal the same truth. Of the nervous side shows he cares deeply about how he comes across to you. Of the protective side shows he cares deeply about how you feel around him. Both are driven by the same source. Of he wants to matter to you, and he wants you to feel secure in his presence. Of this blend of vulnerability and strength is often one of the clearest signs that his attraction runs beyond surface level. Of when you put it all together, you'll see that a man who adjusts himself around you, who fumbles or fidgets, and who instinctively acts protective, is revealing more than he realizes. He may not have the courage to say he's attracted, but his body, his habits, and his instincts are already speaking on his behalf. Attraction is hard to hide when it shows up in both the shaky moments of nervousness and the steady moments of care. These quiet signals, once you learn to notice them, are often louder than words.